Howdy y'all! Thank you for joining us today for this playthrough of Marvel Champions the card game. This is a playthrough where I take these hero packs as soon as they come out, sleeve them up, unchanged, and I basically put them up against normally Rhino, but because of flavor and it's the X-Men, we're going to do this one with Sabretooth and the Brotherhood. So that's what I did here. This is a sleeved up deck. Basically I sleeved it up. Didn't change anything from the actual hero pack. That way you can just kind of see how this goes and how the deck, see if it fares up. That way if you're not in the game already and Rogue is just what excites you and you're like, hey, I like that character. My friend has this game. You know what? I'll go buy this character pack and I can play with him. And then if I like it, then I can go into it deeper if I want to. But for the most part, that's what it is. It's just unchanged, straight from the unboxing. Just giving it a few shuffles there on camera. But that should be good to go. And then, like I said, we're going to put him against Sabretooth here. I've already given him his hit points. And actually, sorry, I already got this flipped over. But we'll go through all that here in a second. The way I build up the villain deck was, like, I've already got the obligation in there. We've got the standard cards. We've got the Sabretooth cards. The Brotherhood. And then normally it'd be Mystique for the other part of the Brotherhood. But the Rogue deck came with a modular set, the Reavers. So I decided to put the Reavers in there. And I was going to, because of Rogue and Mystique and their interactions and whatnot, and their past, I was going to do Sabretooth and Mystique with the Reavers. But then if Shadows of the Past happens and this Mystique comes out, I felt like it would just make some weird interactions that I didn't really want to have to go into, because basically, yeah, Shadows of the Past wouldn't be that big of a threat for me, or even Mystique wouldn't be that big of a threat for me. Well, I guess it would make her other cards more interactive. But anyway, either way, I decided I just didn't want to do that. That way, if Shadows of the Past happens, then Mystique will come in. So in this case, I guess Mystique's just not messing with Rogue unless she decides to, on a whim, show up. But, so that's already ready to go. And give this a few shuffles. And the way this is going to go, if you've already seen these videos, you know how I do them. If not, if you're new to watching one of these videos, sorry, I am going to bore you on the first round. Because what I like to do is do a teach on the first round. That way, if somebody is interested in playing this game, and it was the Rogue thing that kind of interested them in looking at it, they can kind of follow along on the teach and find out if it's a game they want to get into. Because I do think it is a great game. I think it is a very underrated game. And I think I want to get as many people out there trying it out and seeing if it is their cup of tea or not. So basically, I will do a teach on the first round, and after that, the only time you'll hear anything is if I hit stuff on future rounds or whatnot. All right, I think that should be more than enough shuffles there, so we'll put that deck right there. Okay, so let's go through the setup real fast. We have Sabretooth here. It says contents for the Sabretooth deck, Sabretooth 1 and 2. I have Sabretooth 1 and 2 right here. And then we have Sabretooth and standard sets. Did that. 2 modular sets. Like I said, it's Brotherhood and Mystique, but we've got Brotherhood and the Reavers, since it's the modular set that came with Rogue. And then setup, put the Find the Sender side scheme into play, which we got it here, and I would just go through all that stuff. We might as well do all the rest of this stuff too while we're here. So it says put that into play. We're going to put it into play. Attach the Robert Kelly ally to it. I've already got it there. While Robert Kelly's in play, but while attached to Find the Senator, Robert Kelly is in play, but under no player's control. All right. So we'll come back to that once we do all that. So we're going to put this into play. By putting it into play, it lets us know it's going to have 5 threat on there per player. So it's going to put 5 threat on there, because it says here 5 threat per player. And it says Robert Kelly cannot be healed by player cards, effects, and cannot have upgrades attached. Man, I cannot talk today. What is it with these videos and not being able to talk? Either way. When defeated, the first player detaches Robert Kelly from this scheme and takes control of him. Advance to main scheme 2A, flip this card and place it next to the main scheme. And then it has this crisis icon. And what this crisis icon means, if you're new to the game, is there's threat that's going to be on here, and there's going to be threat that's going to be on the main scheme. You cannot remove threat from the main scheme as long as this crisis icon is out. So that means all the threat has to be removed from here before I could do anything to the main scheme. Alright, so we put that into play. It's there. It's attached. Robert Kelly's attached to it. Robert Kelly has 9 hit points. And I know these are damage counters, but I like to just put the counters on there. That way I kind of know where I'm at. And I'm covering all this text box up. I need to go over all of his text box because you're going to see why when I flip this over. But, alright, so that's all there. He's not under anyone's control. We need to find the Senator because he's being stalked by Sabretooth. So here we go. Stalked by Sabretooth. We flip this over because we did all the setup. And it lets us know there's going to be no threat on here starting out. It will accelerate plus 1 threat per player during the acceleration phase. We'll get to our step. We'll get to that. As a forced response, also during that acceleration after resolving step 1 of the villain phase, deal 2 damage to Robert Kelly. Alright, we'll get to all that if you don't know what that means. And then while Robert Kelly's attached to find the Senator, he's attached to find the Senator, treat his text box as if it were blank. That's the reason, like I said, we're going to get to it. If Robert Kelly leaves play, the players lose the game. Okay. So we got all that setup done. Now we do the setup for Anna Marie, or Rogue. And I did not go over it during the unboxing. I realized when I was putting sleeving everything up, I was like, oh, I forgot to talk about hit points and hand size. So for her hand size for Alter Ego, which is where she starts in, she starts with 6 cards in hand. And in her hero form, her max hand size is 5. So that's average. That's usually the way most heroes are. But the average hit points are 10. Her max hit points are 11. So she starts out with 1 extra hit point, and I've already got her set up. The rest of the setup for Anna Marie is setup, set your touched upgrade aside. So I already have the touched upgrade set to the side. Cool. Alright, and then I'm first player, so this really doesn't matter in solo because I'm always going to be first player, but we'll go ahead and put it out here just because we can. But now we're actually set up. I just forgot to choose first player, but there we go. Alright, so first things first, we need to draw up to our hand size of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. Got my hand size, and technically now's when we would do the setup. Which is why, and I guess that makes sense, I just didn't know. I didn't know if this means that this has to be shuffled into the deck and then you go get it, because it says set your touched upgrade aside. Because I noticed on Wolverine it does the same thing. And I'm wondering if that means they get 1 less card in their deck because this one has to be in the deck. That's the only reason I could see why they don't just say, especially with the Wolverine one, because I want to say the Wolverine one said go in your deck and find it or whatever, search your deck, discard pile and deck. So I think that's saying they are limiting them a little bit more. Anyway, either way, now that we're set up, the first part of a turn takes place starting with the hero phase. The hero phase starts out where you're going to go to the first player, and the first player is basically going to do all of their actions until they're done, and then it'll go on to the next player to do all their actions until they're done, and so forth, until all the players have gone, and then we'll do the player phase. Hence, we're solo, so we're just going to go through the player phase one time. On your turn, there are basically 4 things you can do. One of the things you could do on your turn is once per turn, or once per hero phase, you can flip your hero, or change form is really what you're doing. Is you can change from alter ego to hero form, or vice versa from hero to alter ego form. So in this case, we are going to switch from alter ego form and change form to our hero form. And as you can see, it's going to change the abilities that you have along with the abilities in your text boxes. So we're going to do that for one time right now. We're going to switch over to our hero form. It has a forced response here, but it doesn't take place till the beginning of the player phase, so we'll come back to that at the beginning of the next player phase. And then the other action we're about to get to. Another action you could do on your turn, or another thing you can do on your turn, is you can play cards from your hand. To play cards from your hand, it costs a number of resources equal to the card in the top left corner. So in this case, to play Gambit, it'd be 3, and for this card, it'd be 1. In order to play those cards, you have to discard cards from your hand, and you'll notice they have these little resources boxes down in the bottom left of the card. So by discarding the card, it pays the resource, or gives you the resource to pay for cards. So hence, I want to bring out Iceman. He costs 3 resources in order to bring him out. So I would have to discard 3 resources worth of cards. And notice I have this resource card here that is limited 1 per deck, but it counts as 2 resources. And then there's that 3rd resource I need in order to pay for Iceman. So I discard these. And now Iceman gets to come into play. He comes into play. I paid the cost. He comes into play with 3 hit points. And like I say, I like to put those on there just so I know how many hit points they have. And then also it says, Iceman enters play with 3 freeze counters on him. Wish I would have brought some of my cool looking ice, actually. And actually, I'm going to change this up a little bit. I forgot I have these little cracked ice things. So here's his 3 freeze counters on him. And the reason he gets those freeze counters on him, I'm already dropping them off, is he has a response that after a minion enters play, I get to remove 1 freeze counter from him to stun that minion. I'm sure with the Brotherhood, we're going to see that happen at some point in this game, unless he gets knocked out. So we'll come back to that. And actually, since we have these little cracked ice, I'll just go ahead and get rid of this. I just hate playing with cardboard. So we're going to take those off of Iceman and Senator Kelly. And we'll just, I have some damage counters we'll use. But yep, there's his things, and he's at 3 hit points. Alright, so that's putting a card into play. I'm going to go ahead and put another card into play. I want to put this card into play. It costs 1 to do so. So there's my 1. And I get to put this X Gene into play. It is an upgrade. So what an upgrade is, it's something that will come into play. Which actually, I take that back. I cannot put that into play. Because I just noticed it says play only if your identity has the mutant trait. So I would have had to do this when I was over in my alter ego form. I know that's confusing. I'm going to do this. I'm going to pretend like I didn't switch to my hero form yet, because I could have brought Iceman into play while I was still over here in this form, and nothing's really changed. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this into play. There's my 1. And I'm going to say that I was just still over here in my mutant form, because now I get this upgrade into play, which really isn't going to help me too much this turn. I'm just setting up for future turns, because what it allows me to do is, when I'm spending those resources, just like you saw with that resource card, this gives me, during that resource step, I can exhaust this to generate a wild resource for an identity-specific event. So what it's talking about is, it has to be one of my identity-specific cards, or an identity-specific card, because if you saw my unboxing, she can take other people's identity-specific stuff from out of their discard piles. Of course, in here, I'm solo, so I won't be able to do that. But anyways, if it lets me use these identity specific cards, but only the event ones. So it wouldn't help me in this case. But I'm sure I'm going to draw more of them. And I'm sorry I'm making that so confusing by putting this upgrade into play. Well, actually, upgrades go on the character. So she has the X gene now. And like I said, I just had to be back. I had to be in this. And then now's when I would actually, after I brought these guys out, or brought out the ally and brought out the upgrade, then I would switch over into my hero form. Just shows, make sure you read your cards. In this case, nothing changed. But like, if I would have drawn this after I'd, because of something that let me draw cards, well, I already switched forms. I couldn't all of a sudden go back and go, well, I could have done this. No. But in this case, I had this in my hand. I know that was confusing, but learn to read your cards, and I should have read my cards. I just didn't notice that it said mutant, and she's not considered a mutant over in her hero form. Anyways, all right, so that's attached to her. And then now, one of the other things you can do during your turn, because I showed you 2 of the 4, which was change forms, play cards. A third thing you could do is some cards out here or in your hand will say action on them. What that means is you can activate that during your turn, or during during your hero phase of your turn. So in this case, for instance, Rogue has an action that says attach touched to another character. You gain each of that attached character's traits until the end of the round. So I'm going to activate the skin contact action, which is attach touched, which is this upgrade, to a character. Now I have options here. I could attach touch to Iceman, which it says here if I attach touch to Iceman, he's an ally, I would gain the aerial trait. I would also gain any traits that Iceman has, like X-Men there. Well, I've already got the X-Men trait. And I think on the unboxing I kind of misspoke about something. It really wasn't I misspoke, but I was thinking of some weird interactions that would happen if you were in teamwork or whatever, because I was thinking it takes abilities instead of traits. I actually thought she was going to steal abilities, not traits. And she ended up stealing traits, which I can still see some cool stuff she can do with them. But, yeah, I did misspeak in the unboxing about that. But I don't really need X-Men because I already got that trait. And I don't need aerial because there's nothing out here that says if I have aerial, I get something. Alright, well, I do have other targets that I could target. I could target Robert Kelly, but remember, it said no upgrades can go on Robert Kelly. So this is an upgrade, so I cannot put an upgrade on Robert Kelly. Which really, even if I could, would just be an ally. Because that's what he is. He is an ally. And it would just give me the Senator trait. Nah. But I could attach it to Sabretooth. So I think I'm going to touch Sabretooth. So I'm going to use that action to touch Sabretooth, which he is the villain. So, villain means I gain the Retaliate 1 action. What Retaliate 1 means is, or not action, but I gain the Retaliate 1 ability. And what that means is, anytime that I am attacked, Rogue personally, before I get to basically do 1 damage to them, whether they do damage or not. Alright, yeah, let's attach that to Sabretooth. So I'm just going to slide it under here so that to know he's touched. And I have Retaliate 1 now. I also gain his trait, which is Brotherhood of Mutants. So that was activating an action. The fourth thing that you can do for your turn is called making a basic attack, thwart, or recovery. What that means is, if I want, if you'll notice, I have these abilities over here to the left. These are called basic abilities. During my turn, if I want, I can exhaust Rogue and thwart for whatever number's here. So in this case, I would exhaust her and thwart for 2. What thwart is I would come over here to any schemes that are in play, and I could remove a number of threat equal to that number from those schemes. But remember, I couldn't, if there was any threat on here, because of this crisis icon, I cannot remove any threat from over here. So it would have to be from there. So that would be a basic thwart action. Or I could do exhaust her, and I could do a basic attack action. A basic attack action would be exhaust her, and I would attack a minion or villain for whatever number is in that box. So I could attack Sabretooth for 2 in this case if I wanted to. Or, and this isn't one you can really do right now, but if, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it. If somebody were attacking me, like Sabretooth or a minion, I could exhaust her, and I would defend and reduce the damage by whatever number's in the defense box. And I know she could have talked about it here, but we're going to go talk about it now. If I was in alter ego form, you'll notice they have a recovery ability there. I could exhaust Rogue, or Anna Marie in this case, to recover by that number. I would recover that many hit points up to my max. In this case, I'm up to my max, so I couldn't do it. Also, I'm not in alter ego form, I am in hero form, so I couldn't recover hit points. That was just a long, drawn out way of saying that basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to exhaust Rogue to thwart an event or a side scheme for 2. So I'm going to come over here to find the Senator, and I'm going to thwart this for 2, which is basically going to add 3 or 5 minus 2 means I remove 2 threat from the scheme. And that would be that basic action. And that reminded me that I just realized I did not teach it in this game. I normally teach it early. I didn't tell you what the point of the game is. So, what we have to do is, we, as the heroes, have to knock out Sabretooth 2 times. He's got a stage 1, where he's had 17 hit points per player, or has 17 hit points per player. And then if we were to knock him out, he would go to his stage 2, where he would get another 17 hit, or, you know what? Obviously, I can't read numbers, because it's supposed to be 13 hit points per player. Looked at the wrong number. I was about to say, I didn't remember him having 17, but I was like, maybe, man, my memory's real bad. So, really, it was 13 hit points per player, and then in stage 2 would be 15 hit points per player. So actually, we win if we knock Sabretooth out twice. We lose if Sabretooth manages to knock us out, or all the heroes out. So in this case, solo, he has to knock us out. Or if he can pull off his main scheme, which in this case, his main scheme is to KO Senator Kelly, because it says here, if Robert Kelly leaves play, the players lose the game. So he's trying to knock out Senator Kelly, which we're going to get to how he's going to do that here in a second. So we need to knock him out twice before he pulls off his main scheme or knocks us out. Sorry I skipped that. You can definitely tell it's been a bit since I've done one of these. Now, what an ally, when you have an ally out, you'll notice an ally has those same abilities off to the side here. They have the thwart, they have the attack. So if you wanted with an ally, you can exhaust them to do the same thing. But notice they have these little stars underneath there where we didn't. Those are called consequence stars. So if they do said ability, then after they do said ability, they will take damage equal to the number of consequence stars that are underneath the ability they're doing. So in this case, I'm going to exhaust Iceman to thwart for 1. So I exhaust Iceman to thwart for 1. The same thing. So I remove 1 threat from the scheme. But now that I did that, he has a consequence star under there. So Iceman is going to take 1 damage to his 3. So that means he only has 2 hit points left. Now notice they don't have the defense, so they could defend if they wanted to, but if they do, they don't get to reduce damage. It's just whether they survive or not have enough hit points to survive. Alright, hopefully I got everything on track now and not making this too confusing since I've already screwed up 2 things here. But let's truck on and see if we can stop, if we can find the Senator before Sabretooth manages to stalk him and knock him out. So, now that once you have no actions or no things you want to do on your turn, or nothing you want to do on your turn basically, you go to your end step and the next player would go. In this case we're solo, so we're done. So we go to the end of the player phase. Each player simultaneously discards any number of cards from their hand. So in that case, I had this 1 card in hand. I could choose to discard it if I wanted to. But as we saw, allies are good to have out. So we're going to save this card in hand. Then after you choose whether you want to discard any cards from hand, you're going to draw up to whatever your current hand size is. Now remember, when I was in alter ego form, my current hand size was 6. But now it is 5 in my hero form. So that means I draw up to my hand size of 5. Since I kept the 1 card, that's 1. So I'm going to draw 4 more cards. 2, 3, 4, 5 cards to my max hand size. After you have drawn up, you ready and unexhaust all your cards in your play area. And then that's the end of the hero phase, and we move on to the villain phase. Okay, so the first step of the villain phase is to accelerate the scheme. So what you do here is you look here, and it shows in there how many threat gets added at the beginning as the first step of the villain phase. Here it says +1 threat per player with a star, which means there's something else going on. So yeah, we add 1 threat as I throw it over there like a mongoloid. Add 1 threat per player, did that. And then we go look at the star. And it says forced response. After resolving step 1 of the villain phase, this is step 1 of the villain phase, we just did it, deal 2 damage to Robert Kelly. 3 damage instead if there's 6 threat here. Okay, so we go do 2 damage to Robert Kelly, so he's done 2 to his 9. And that's the first step. The next step of the villain phase is the villain is going to activate. So the villain, or actually I should say the bad guys will all activate. And it depends on what form you're in as to how the villains and bad guys will activate. If you are in alter ego form, then they're all going to scheme and add more threat to the main scheme. If you're in hero form, they're going to attack you. So, with Rogue, I am in hero form. So that means they're going to attack me. Now's when I have to choose if I want to defend. If I want to, I can defend with Rogue, which would exhaust her and reduce the damage by 2. But remember, if I exhaust her, well, remember, you don't unexhaust already until the end of your turn. So then she would not be able to do any of her basic abilities on my next hero phase. And I could defend with Iceman, but remember, then he'll take all this damage and I won't have him to actually stun or slow down the minions. I think in this case, I am going to defend with Rogue, which means I will reduce the damage by 2 that Sabretooth's about to do. So, Sabretooth is going to do 2 damage. It says right there, 2 damage. But he is a villain. Villains get what's called a boost card. So and he's also going to do something else, and I need to remember that because I usually forget it sometimes. But what a boost card is, it means he's going to do 2, and the same thing would happen even if he was scheming, and then he would deal himself a card from the top of the deck into his boost pile. There is ways that they could have multiple cards already built up in their boost pile. And then they're going to reveal all these cards one at a time, but they're going to ignore the card and only look down here in the bottom right. So in this case, he's doing 2 damage plus, and you're going to look at the bottom here, and you're going to look at for these little prongs here. And these are called boost icons. So he's going to get pluses for each of those icons that are there. So in this case, he's attacking for 2 plus 2. So he's going to do 4 damage to Rogue. And I'm going to do this so I don't forget, because there is something else I have to come back to and do. So Rogue is going to take 4 damage. But remember, I defended. So that means I get to reduce the damage by 2. So 4 minus 2 means I take 2 damage. But now also, after I took the damage, remember, I touched Sabretooth, so when I touched Sabretooth and he's the villain, I gained Retaliate 1, which means anytime I'm attacked, if I survive the attack, I retaliate back. So I retaliate for 1 damage. But now, Sabretooth had this force, it showed a star here, and it's a forced response. That force response says, after Sabretooth activates against me, he just activated against me, which was attacking or scheming is activating. So discard the top card of the encounter deck, heal damage from Sabretooth equal to the number of boost icons discarded this way. So we're going to look for those boost icons again. And actually, I'm kind of glad this came up, because I'm going to show it real fast. So we're just looking for, in this case it showed, we're only looking for that boost icon. So he heals for, there's only one of those there, but notice there's a star there. I'll come back to that. Let me go ahead and heal him for that 1 right now, because he regenerated for that 1, so the retaliate really did nothing. But in this case, we were only looking for that. But if that would have been the boost card that we boosted, then we would actually go look at this star. So if that would have been him doing his damage, it would have been 3 damage, and then we'd have to go look at this star, and in that case, we would just do whatever the star says. So it was a good thing that came up in that order. It just was bad that it just regenerated him the 1 that I just did to him. After that, we would do the minions, if there were any on us. Now, minions do not get a boost card like the villain did. Unless they have, there's something that would let them do it. But in this case, they don't. After the bad guys activate, the next step is each player is dealt an encounter card from the top of the deck into their encounter pile. So they could have other encounter cards that are built up there. But this is the turn, this is the point in the turn when you would have to deal with those. So say I would have done something during my turn that would have gave me an encounter card. It would just sit there waiting on me, and then when we get to this step, I would have to deal myself another one, and then I'd have to do them. Because what we do once we deal every character an encounter card is, now we are going to go through these cards one at a time, and we have to actually do whatever the card says. So in this case, a minion comes into play. And what a minion is, there's basically a bad guy that's going to come out. Oh wow, that is some bad glare. Let me see if I can't situate this a little bit better. I did not realize there was a bad glare there. But a minion will come out, and they're basically going to be, as I mentioned, they will activate during that villain activation and do stuff. Well, let's see what else. So right now, he would activate, and he would just do 1 scheme or 1 attack during that activation. But he has 6 hit points to take him down. He also has Villainous. Villainous is that ability I was just talking about, where normally only the villain gets a boost card. In this case, he would get a boost card activating also. Boo! Alright, what's his forced response? Forced response is, after Donald Pierce engages you, so this is him coming out, he is engaging me, I reveal the topmost Reaver minion from the discard pile. So, if there was a Reaver in the discard pile, he would come into play also. There is a minion in the discard pile, but it is not a Reaver. It is a Brotherhood of Mutants. So, in this case, I'm lucky, and this guy just attaches to me, but does nothing else. I just put them all up here in the bad guy area, since I'm playing solo, and this is everything I have to deal with anyways. Alright, well, I do have another forced response that happens because of that. Because remember, Iceman has a forced response, or not really a forced response, he just has a response. He has a response that says, after a minion enters play, a minion just entered play, remove one freeze counter from him, and stun that minion. Well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to remove a freeze counter from him, and I'm going to stun that minion. What stunned is a status effect that would go on this little card would go on there. And what a stun is, it says that the next time that character would attack, instead of attacking, they get rid of this card. So basically, it just cancels out their attack. I have my little 3D printed stun thing, so we'll just put that on him. Alright, that was a lot that went down during that encounter phase. A lot of stuff to talk about, but several things triggered right there. The last part of the villain phase is to pass the player marker to the next player. In this case, we're the solo, so we just keep it. And then that's it. That's the end of a round. At that point, we're just going to go back and forth until I either knocked out Sabretooth twice, or he knocks me out, or pulls off his scheme. So, there we go. Let's go on into my next hero phase. Alright, beginning of the hero phase, I do have a forced response. The forced response is that after the player phase begins, player phase just began, I have to find touched and set it aside. So that means this comes off a Sabretooth and set it aside. I think first I'm going to want to play a card from my hand. I want to play this energy transfer. It costs 2 to play. I do have this though, which says as a resource, which this is the resource phase step, because I'm paying for a card, I can exhaust X gene to generate a wild resource for an identity specific event. This is an identity specific event, so I'm going to exhaust it. There's one of my resources. And then really this is useless in the without other players, so I'm going to use that as my second, and that pays for energy transfer. So what an event is a one-time play thing that you're just going to do, because notice it says hero action, so that means I have to be in hero form, and it's an action, just like we had that action where I could touch someone and gain their traits. So it's just an action that I can play. So I paid for it. Here's the one-time hero action. What do we do? It says, attach touch to a character other than Rogue and deal 2 damage to that character. Alright? Well, I'm going to attach touched to a character other than Rogue, and I'm actually going to attach it to Sabretooth again. Which means we gain, because he's a villain, we gain that Retaliate 1. And it does 2 damage to him, because I get to deal 2 damage to the person I've done that to. So done 2 damage to Sabretooth. And then it says, after I've done that, I heal 2 damage from Rogue and ready her. So I get to heal 2 damage. And now I get to ready her. Okay. I gain each of that attached character's traits till the end of combat, until the end of the round. And the round is at the end of the villain phase. So once again, it's the same thing as this. This just let me heal a little bit. So I gain the Brotherhood of Mutants trait. And that's played out that card now. I was actually setting up to find Cinder Kelly this turn. But I think I'd rather set up and just let him take a little bit more damage. And I think instead I'm going to exhaust Rogue and attack Sabretooth for 2 damage. So they don't get to defend. He's just going to take the 2 damage. I'm actually going to take that action where I'm going to switch to my alter ego form. Now, I do have a force response here that says after I change this form, I set touched aside. So actually, touch is going to come off of Sabretooth and put it aside. Yeah, with that, I was thinking if I want to attack with Iceman, but I am worried that because he'll have to take that extra damage and there's stuff out there that could just do 1 damage to him. And I want to be able to use these freeze counters, and there's no reason to make a push right now. So with that, I'm going to go to my end phase. I'm going to keep these 3 cards in hand. So that means we draw up to our hand size, which is 6 now because we're back in alter ego form. So 3, 4, I knew I was going to draw that, 5, and 6. And then ready all of our cards. Go back to the villain phase. We accelerate the scheme for 1 threat. There's not 6 on here per player, so it's going to do 2 damage to Robert Kelly. So now, bad guys are going to activate, starting with the villain. In this case, I am in alter ego form, so they're going to scheme to add threat to the scheme. So we start with Sabretooth, who's going to scheme for 1. Deal him his boost card, 1 plus 2, so he schemes for 3. And then he has that forced response, which is after he activates, he just activated, so he's going to heal for 1, because there's only 1 of those there. So he heals for 1. And then now the minion's going to activate against me. Now this stun was only if he attacked. He's not attacking, he's scheming. And normally minions would only scheme for whatever number here. So in this case he would only scheme for 1, but he is villainous. So that means he does get a boost card. So Donald Pierce will scheme for 1 plus 3 for 4. So yeah, we're going to have to find Senator Kelly now, because if we get to that next thing, he's going to be doing 3 damage to him. And he's already down to 5. And there's cards, because I played against him now a little bit, there are cards in here where he does damage to Kelly. So we don't want that to be happening. So, but that was the bad guys activating. So now we go to the encounter step. We deal ourselves an encounter card. And now we have to do the encounter card, which is Assault. When revealed in alter ego form, this card gains Surge. When revealed in hero, the villain attacks you. Well, I am still in alter ego form. So this card gains Surge. And what Surge means is we have to deal ourselves another card. So it's making sure something's going to happen. Sorry, there was something on there. I just went to go shake it. Anyways, so we deal ourselves Bone Breaker here. It is a minion. Yay, another minion. He's got the teamwork, which means when a Reaver activates, they're going to... And I think that teamwork, I'll double check it. Oh, I forgot about that glare. Sorry, I was able to fix that glare somewhat, but I don't think I can get rid of it. But I actually misspoke earlier about the teamwork. I just hadn't really messed with it that much. I was actually wrong. It's not when they activate. It's actually when they engage. So like when this guy comes out, he's actually going to do it right now. So he engages with me, and the way teamwork work means when he engages with me, it's going to cause all the other Reavers to basically engage with me also. Sorry, I said it's not just he's going to engage, he's going to do his stuff if there's at least one other person there. So let's take care of the rest of the card, and then they're going to do some stuff, because I'm also going to have some stuff that's going to trigger. All bunch of stuff triggering here. All right, so he's got teamwork, which means he's going to make this guy activate also. And the way I read it, he's going to get to activate for free also, because there's at least one other person. So basically, he engages with me. Normally, that would be it. But because there's someone else, he's going to activate. And it says that there's at least one other. the ones with teamwork activate against me. And normally, and that's where I misspoke earlier, like I said, I hadn't messed with teamwork too much, is normally I said it would be, oh, even if they're engaged with other people, they'll do their thing. No, it's just a Reaver came into play, so it's going to force all the Reavers to do stuff if there's at least another Reaver in play, which there is. Okay, which is why he was so dangerous, because there would have been one in there. He would have brought one in, which would have made them all activate. So this is going to activate, but let's do the rest of his stuff. He also has toughness. What toughness is, it means he gets this tough card. And what a tough card is it says that this card goes on him, and the next time he would take damage for any reason, he instead doesn't, and this card just goes away. So it just absorbs the first amount of damage. So you want to do some minor damage to them quickly. So we'll put a toughness shield on him, and I'll put over his hit points, that way I remember. Then he also has a forced interrupt. It says, after Bonebreaker engages you, I take 1 indirect damage for each Reaver minion engaged with me. So that means there's 2 Reaver minions engaged with me. So that means I'm going to take 2 indirect damage. This is why I'm glad I did not activate Iceman or do anything with Iceman, because what indirect damage is it means I have to take, so I'm taking 2 damage, but I have to spread it out amongst all my characters. So that means I have to do 1, since I have 2 characters and 2 damage, it means each character is going to take 1 damage. So that means Anna Marie will take 1 damage. And Iceman will take 1 damage. So see, if I would have activated him, I'm glad I mean, I was thinking of Sabretooth, who does indirect damage, but there we go. And I was thinking also there's another one, I can't think of his name right now. He's a Brotherhood that I know you run into, but he does indirect damage. So I was like, oh, if he comes out, that sucks. Well, also, that was a forced interrupt. Interrupts, in my opinion, are before the response, but now we have the response that says, after a minion enters play, remove 1 freeze counter from Iceman to stun that minion. So I'm removing a freeze counter, and I'm stunning Bonebreaker, which once again stops him from attacking 1 time. Okay, well now we got to do the Teamwork Reaver stuff, which if I would have been in hero form and they were attacking, would have just got rid of these stuns. Well, actually that would have been gone earlier, so he'd be fine, but they're not. I'm in alter ego form, so that means they're going to scheme. So they're both going to scheme. Yep, definitely going to have to save Robert Kelly, because Bonebreaker schemes for 1. He does not have Villainous, so it's just 1 with no boost card. Donald Pierce schemes for 1, but he gets a boost card. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, we definitely have to find the Senator. I mean, it's only 3 more damage, but still, like, we don't want him to... That's a lot of threat on there. All right. All that was the encounter phase, so pass the player token and go back to the beginning of my turn. Alright, get in my turn. We don't have that forced response anymore. I want to bring out Gambit. He costs 3. So we're paying 3. We put Gambit into play. He's got 3 hit points. It says Gambit enters play with 3 charge counters on him. When Gambit attacks, remove 1 charge counter from him and deal 1 damage to an enemy. So he's going to be able to help me push a little bit of damage. I know it may look a little confusing, but since this is kind of a pink, and I've been using red for hit points, but we'll just put these pink on here for his charge, because that's the way his cards charge up. We're going to switch to my hero form. We're going to activate the action to attach touch to another character. I gain his traits. We're going to do the same thing to Sabretooth, so I gain Brotherhood of Mutants. And we already know, since he's a villain, that gives me the Retaliate 1 ability. We're going to exhaust Gambit to attack Sabretooth for 2 damage. And it says here, when Gambit attacks, I can remove a charge counter from him to deal an additional damage to or 1 damage to an enemy, and it could be any enemy. So if I wanted to, I could do that 1 damage to this to get rid of that toughness. But I think if I plan this out right, I should be able to have retaliate whenever he goes to attack, so that gets rid of, well, I would have to take damage, but still, I'd rather just focus all the damage on Sabretooth. So we're going to put all 3 damage on Sabretooth. And then Gambit has to take a consequence damage, because there's 1 consequence star there. I'm going to leave Iceman, because I mean, we haven't seen any Brotherhood come out. We already have 2 Reavers, and I think there was like 2 more Reavers. So the odds of us hitting another... I just hope he doesn't get knocked out before he can use that. But those stuns, they're about to come in handy. But we have to save the Senator this turn. So we're going to use Rogue to thwart find the Senator for 2 threat, which is enough to remove the last threat from it. And some stuff's about to trigger now, so let's go through another long thing as we do all this. So all this is removed, so that means this goes away, and it says when this is defeated, the first player detaches Robert Kelly from this scheme and takes control of him. So I'm the first player. I take control of this character, and he is an ally. And normally you are limited. I did not mention it with the allies. You are limited to only having 3 allies in play at one time. And I know that if you've played before, you know what I'm about to come back to. But for now, just remember, you are limited to 1 or 3 allies. But I take control of him. All right. Advance the main scheme to main scheme 2A. So this all goes away. We go to scheme 2A, which is the injured Senator. It says Sabretooth has wounded Senator Kelly and continues to hound him. When revealed, deal each player a face-down encounter card. So remember, I mentioned you could have extra. So that means I'm going to have to deal with extra encounters next turn. Put that right there. All right. Oh, so we did that. Now we have to flip to this, which says, the injured Senator, get Robert Kelly to safety before Sabretooth finishes the job. When completed, defeat Robert Kelly. So what that's saying is, normally, if you'll look at this, we had all that threat adding up on here, but normally there's a number up here, and if there's a number of threat equal to whatever that number is, that's normally what makes the scheme progress. In this case, it wasn't. This was just going to build up. He was going to keep doing damage. It was whenever we found the Senator that progressed this. So in this case, it's saying once there's 9 threat on here per player, this is going to be completed, which is defeat Robert Kelly. Okay? If Robert Kelly leaves play, the players lose the game. So if there's ever 9 threat on here, because 9 threat per player and we're solo, we lose the game because Robert Kelly's going to get knocked out. Okay, so we've got to make sure 9 threat is not on there. Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. Let's finish. All right, flip this card and place it next to the main scheme. All right, we flip this card. It's protect the Senator. Here's an environment. It says the mission, Robert Kelly cannot be healed by player card effects, so I can't heal him. It cannot have upgrades attached to him, so I can't put upgrades on him to beef him up. Hero response, after your hero defends against an attack from Sabretooth, spend 2 resources of any type to ready your hero. Only the player who controls Robert Kelly can trigger this ability. So basically I can spend 2 resources to ready myself after defending against Sabretooth. And you're about to see why I might want to do that, because I keep wanting to grab this card. Now if we come over here to Robert Kelly and we read him, because we got control of this ally, it says first player controls Robert Kelly. Okay. He does not count against your ally limit, so he doesn't count towards that 3. And cannot have player cards attached. Okay. As a forced interrupt, when an enemy resolves an undefended attack against me, I deal that damage to Robert Kelly. So that's the reason they're giving me the ability to ready my character, because if I don't defend any attack, it's by either whether I do it or one of my allies. If they don't defend, Robert Kelly takes the damage. Remember, he's only got 5 hit points left, and I can't heal him. And if he knocks out, we lose the game. So we've got to knock Sabretooth out now before he knocks out Robert Kelly. Or gets 9 threat on her, which is going to knock out Robert Kelly. So, long explanation, but all that triggered when I removed that 2. I don't have consequence stars, so I don't take that. So, we're good. With that, we're going to go to my end step. I want to keep both these cards in hand. So, we have 2. We draw to our hand size of 5. So, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ready all of our cards. We accelerate the scheme, 1 per player, so 1 of the 9. Now they're going to activate against us. I am in hero form, and I didn't mention if there were other players, the villain would activate against each player, and then just the minions that are engaged with them would go against each player also. But the villain will activate against each player. I am in hero form, so they are going to attack. So Sabretooth's going to attack for 2 plus a boost card. Now remember, if I don't defend, then Robert Kelly's going to take the damage. So I don't really have much of a choice here. I have to defend. So Sabretooth's going to do 2 plus the boost card. So 2. It's at that boost icon, so we have to look and see what the boost icon is. And it says, if this attack defeats an ally, place 2 threat on the main scheme. Well, it's not going to defeat an ally because it's going against me, so it's 2 plus 0 in this case. Sorry, I realized I threw this into the discard pile. Just moving that around. Alright, so 2 plus 0 is 2. I defended, so 2 minus 2 is 0, so I take no damage. But remember, Sabretooth has a forced response where he's going to heal because he activated. And he heals for 0 because there's none of those icons there. So he stays at 7. But now all the minions are going to activate. We'll start with Donald Pierce. He's going to attack, but he's stunned. So instead of attacking, he just becomes unstunned. And then Bonebreaker is going to attack, but he's stunned. So instead of attacking, he unstuns. Because he breaks out of Iceman's freezing. And they've now all activated against us. I did forget. Each of them attacked me. So I have retaliate 1. So Sabretooth attacked me. So I does 1 damage to him. And normally, yes, they attacked me, but actually they didn't. Because of the stun, they didn't attack, so I don't get to do the retaliate. Which kind of sucks. I wanted to get rid of this toughness, but that's fine. Alright. We go to the encounter phase now. We have to deal ourselves an encounter card. So now we have 2 we're going to have to deal with. Most likely getting another minion on us. So here we go. Let's deal with the first one. A cybernetic enhancements. Attached to a minion, otherwise this card gains surge, and what this is going to do, it's an attachment, it's going to give them +1 attack. Attached minion cannot take damage. As a forced response, after attached minion attacks, discard cybernetic enhancements. And I have to look up something because I get to choose which minion it goes on. So it's not going to gain surge, but because of what I have planned, I'm going to have to look up something real fast. They actually had it in the rogue thing, so that's fine. I'm going to attach it to Bonebreaker here. So he has +1, and the next time he would take damage, or actually he can't take damage until this goes away, and the next time he would attack, this goes away. So, alright. We did that. Now we get another attachment attached to Sabretooth. So this is going to go on Sabretooth. Sabretooth gains Stalwart. Basically, it means he cannot be stunned or confused. So like stunned you saw makes it where he couldn't attack, so he can't be stunned now. Confused is he wouldn't be able to scheme. But hero action, as a hero action, I can spend these resources and I can discard this card. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and put it underneath here, so that I remember that. I know it's a little off camera. There. I zoomed out a little bit more, so everything's kind of on camera now. Alright. Well, he's still touched. Doesn't matter, because when this ends, he won't be touched anymore, but we'll do... Oh my goodness. There. He's touched. Alright, that was the encounters. We switch the player marker, and we go back to the beginning of my turn. Beginning of the hero phase, I remove attached and put it out, set it aside. Now we need to knock out Sabretooth. We need this to happen. I'm actually kind of glad this guy came out, because this is another one of those cases, make sure you read your cards. Because from the get-go, I've had this Karma in hand. So I was planning on getting him, because I was like, oh man, he can get Villainous. Well, actually, no, his box would be blank, so I wouldn't even get the Villainous. Yeah, he was a terrible grab anyways. Anyways, yeah, I was thinking I was going to take him. The problem is Karma can only grab a non-elite. He's an elite. But it works out, this other guy came out, so let's go ahead and do that. So I want to bring Karma into play. She costs 4. 4. And we have Karma here. It says, as a response, after you play Karma from your hand, choose a non-elite minion. While Karma is in play, take control of that minion and treat it as a controlled ally with a blank text box. Its thwart is equal to its printed scheme, and it takes 2 consequence damage after it thwarts or attacks. So I'm going to target Bonebreaker here and take control of him. And actually, yeah, I know, taking things back, because I just realized I was thinking for some reason this and that would count as my ally, as the same ally. But remember, I have an ally limit of 3. So if I take control of him right now, I'm going to have 4. That means I have to get rid of one of my allies. So we're going to put that on the back burner right there. That's going to happen. Just before we do it, we're going to go ahead and have Iceman attack Sabretooth for 2 damage. So he's going to attack Sabretooth for 2 damage. And that's going to boop. Because now he takes the consequence damage, which is a 3 hit points, which is enough to KO him. He done his job. You done it well. And then now, Karma comes into play, because she's an ally. And it does say he's going to now become an ally. So that would have made my limit. So I needed to make sure to have him. And this is what I had to look up. So that's when I chose him to get the attachment. Because now he comes over with this attachment and that toughness on him. But he'd have everything. So he gets his +1 attack. But he doesn't get anything that says minion on here. Because this says attached minion cannot take damage. After attached minion attacks, discard cybernetic enhancements. He doesn't get both of those. Oh, actually, wow, actually, I don't think this will go away either. Because it says here, because basically it's like he's not a minion no more. He's not a minion. He is an ally. This is still attached to him. So actually, this won't go away. It means he's going to be doing 4 damage. In my opinion, that's the way that works, because if it says that he's no longer a minion, he is now an ally, because that's what this does. It changes the word ally, which it does have these rules in the Rogue little thing talking about what happens if Karma takes control of somebody who has an attachment. It says the attachment is still on them. They just don't gain any of the effects that say minion because they are no longer a minion. And it says here, attached minion cannot take damage. So hence, that goes away because he's not a minion. But it also says as a forced response after attached minion attacks. He's not a minion. He's going to attack as an ally. So I think he keeps this +1 attack. If I'm playing that wrong, sorry, but that is the way I'm going to play it. I'm just going to say he has +1 attack. I didn't think so. I thought it was going to go away afterwards. I was like, he's going to get 1 attack at 4 damage, and then it's going to go away. But if they're saying minion, he's not a minion. So I'm going to say he keeps that 4 damage. Alright, so we did all that. Now I'm going to activate Bone Breaker and have him attack Sabretooth for 4 damage, which is enough to KO Sabretooth. So we knock him out of his stage 1. We go to his stage 2 with 15 hit points per player. So 15 hit points. He also has toughness now, so that means he gets a toughness added to him. Which I'm about to replace this anyways because now that I've done that damage to Sabretooth, all I got to do is knock him out this last time. But remember, he has 2 consequence stars damage now is what Karma added to him. So he's going to take 2 consequence damage, but he had this toughness, so this toughness goes away. And we're just going to replace the card with the... And I'm going to put it actually on his hit points, that way I don't forget. But, and like I said, I'm not going to do that forced response. Because it says minion. He's not a minion. He's no longer a minion. He is now my ally. As long as he's around. Okay, we're going to exhaust Gambit. And I'm going to have him attack Donald Pierce for 2 damage. And we're going to remove a counter. It says when Gambit attacks, remove 1 charge counter from him and deal 1 damage to an enemy. Even though I attack Donald Pierce, I'm going to have this 1 damage go to Sabretooth. And that's because he has that toughness. So 1 damage, first time he would take damage, he doesn't instead get rid of that. That gets rid of that. And actually, do I just want to have him just burn down Sabretooth? I'm just going to have him attack Sabretooth, actually. I think we're just going to burn down Sabretooth. So he attacks, removes that, gets rid of the toughness, and now does 2 damage from his attack to Sabretooth. But Gambit has to take a consequence damage for doing that. And then now Karma could attack or thwart, and she would take a consequence damage, but she has no stats. So she wouldn't really do anything, and it would kill her. And remember, it says, while she's in play, is only the way I control her. So if something takes her out, I actually lose control of him. So as much as I want to have him hang around to do that extra damage, I might consider letting him just take some damage. That way, if something does do damage to her, like that indirect stuff, well. And then Robert Kelly, I could do something with him, but he has no thwart or attack. So I think with that, I'm going to go to my end phase. I want to keep this in hand because I'm hoping to do next turn just a lot of damage to Sabretooth. So we're going to hold on to this 1 card. So we draw up to 5. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ready all of our cards. Top of the villain phase. He's going to accelerate the scheme for 1 per player. Sabretooth, the villains are going to check. I am in hero form. I've already taken too many things back, so I'm not going to do it. I forgot to attach this. I should have. I could have had that retaliate. Well, I'm not going to go back. I am going to have to defend. Because remember, if I don't defend, it goes to Robert Kelly. And, I mean, right now, Sabretooth's doing 2. If there's 3 boosted there, So we're going to defend. So Sabretooth's doing 2 plus 1. So he's doing 3 damage. And I'm going to put this here so I don't forget to regenerate Sabretooth. Does 3 minus my 2. So I take 1. And then now Sabretooth's forced response. And this is where I would have retaliated if I would have had it. But, yep. He's going to heal for 2. Putting him back at full. Which, if I would have had to retaliate, he wouldn't be. That's why you got to make sure, do all your stuff. Alright. Next, Donald Pierce is going to activate. So I have to either block with one of my guys or it's going to Robert Kelly. I'm going to go ahead and defend with Bonebreaker. Oh no, I do not want to defend with Bonebreaker. Because remember, if I defend, even though they don't have a defense, they still have to exhaust. And I don't want to defend with him because I want to be able to attack with him next turn. I don't want to defend with Karma because she'll die, which will make me lose control of him. So Robert Kelly's going to take it in the face. So normally he's just going to take it in the face, but because he's attacking me, the way I look at this, and I haven't seen anything that tells me otherwise, there are some things that may stun my character. So if I say I don't defend, it's going to go to Robert Kelly anyways, but if it says it stuns the character or something like that, my character was what got attacked. The damage just went to Robert Kelly. This says I have complete control of Robert Kelly. It doesn't say I can't defend for him, even though it doesn't make sense. Robert Kelly wouldn't defend for me. But I am going to have Robert Kelly defend. That way the attack is on him. Donald Pierce is doing 1, plus he's villainous, so he gets a boost card. 1, 2 damage to Robert Kelly. He's at 6 of his 9. So we've done them. Now we just got to do the encounter. Deal myself an encounter card. Flip it up. It says here, treachery. When revealed, the villain schemes. So the villain's going to scheme. He's scheming for 2. Plus he gets his boost card. 3. And this does have a boost. And this is a boost. So what's the boost? Attach this card to a minion and give it a tough status card. What does this give that minion? Attach to a minion and give it a tough status card. Yeah, we're doing that. Attached minion has plus 5 hit points. Glad I decided to just burn him down because... Or burn down Sabretooth because there's no way I'm getting through all this. And I didn't think about it. I should have upgraded my character, but Alright. Can't take stuff back. But he gets a tough status card. So he's got 11 hit points and a tough status. Ugh. Yep. Let's hope we can just take Sabretooth down here. That was the encounter. We switched the player thing. Forced response would put this to the side, which I just did. Oh, and technically that wouldn't have been the card. Oh yeah, it would have. That was the boost. I forgot. He schemed for 3. Man. Schemed for 3. He almost pulled this off. And now we're doing his forced response because even though it was a scheme, not an attack, he still gets to regenerate for 2. But he's at full health, so it doesn't matter. He can't go above his max health. Alright, now we're back to the beginning of my turn where I already did that. Which, it was there anyways, because I forgot. Alright, we're going to do Rogue's action, which is attach touched to another character. You gain each of that attached character's traits until the end of the round. I'm not going to attach it to Sabretooth this time. And this time I'm going to attach it to... You know what? I feel like having... Oh, no. He can't have it attached to him. That's right. So no, I was like, oh, I'll make Rogue Ascender. No. Instead, we're going to attach it to Karma. So since we attached it to an ally... Rogue gains the aerial trait along with Psionic and X-Men. She's already an X-Men. So she's an aerial, psionic X-Men. Alright. Next, I'm going to exhaust Bonebreaker and have him attack Sabretooth for 4 damage. Now remember, he has 2 consequence stars, so he takes 2 damage from that. I'm going to have Gambit attack Sabretooth for 2 as an interrupt. I'm going to remove his last counter to do 1 more damage to Sabretooth, so he's going to do a total of 3. But then he has to take his last consequence damage, which is enough to KO him. And then now I'm going to play Southern Cross. It cost me 3. 1, 2. Plus remember, this is a identity specific and it is an event. So I can exhaust this for the 3rd. To do Southern Cross, which is a hero action attack, deals 6 damage to an enemy. If Rogue has, and we see what trait she has, which she has Aerial right now. If she has Aerial, this attack deals 2 additional damage. If she had Retaliate, it would stun them. She don't have Retaliate. If she had Stalwart, she would draw a card. She has Aerial, so she's going to do 8 damage to Sabretooth, which is enough to knock him out. Alright. It was definitely interesting. I would want to rebuild the deck. I don't know if I liked it as protection. And some of these characters were not as good as... I like Bobby Drake a lot. Being able to stun down the minions was amazing. I hope I didn't do that wrong. Even if I did, all it was is I would have discarded the cards to ready Rogue, so she would have the extra 2 damage I could have done instead of the extra 1. So if that was played wrong, But, alright, let's get this cleaned up so that I can see how Gambit will fare. But that was fun. I do think, like, I have seen a trend where typically when they release 2 characters, the character I like without knowing what their deck does is the one I'm looking forward to playing. I've only seen it happen once where it wasn't this way, but typically the one I'm looking forward to playing, which was Rogue in this case, I enjoy playing a lot, but I enjoy the other character more. They're just more my playstyle or whatever, or just had a funner game, I guess. In this case, we'll see. The one time it didn't, because like we saw Cyclops and Jean Grey. I'm not a Jean Grey fan. I enjoyed playing Jean Grey more though, so I was looking forward to Cyclops. I thought he'd do some cool leadership stuff, which he did. It just wasn't really my play style. We saw Jean Grey and Colossus, or not Jean Grey, Shadowcat and Colossus released together. Of course in a box, but they released together. In that case, I think it was just a better game, but I did enjoy Shadowcat's game more than I did Colossus. I just felt like the Colossus deck unchanged wasn't all that good. With Storm and Wolverine, I know this is all fun in the end, so you're probably done with the video. If you're leaving, thank you. Have a great day. But I am going to talk about each of these just because it tends to happen. With Storm and Wolverine, I was looking forward to Storm. I did enjoy Wolverine, but also enjoyed the Storm. So it was kind of even. But I was looking forward to the Storm. But Storm was right up my playstyle. I like doing all the tricky stuff with her and stuff like that. But just being able to melt someone down with Wolverine was just so much fun. Trying to think of the other combinations. There was Spider-Woman and Hawkeye that basically came out together. I definitely enjoyed playing Hawkeye more than I did Spider-Woman, even though I was looking forward to playing Spider-Woman, especially when I saw what her abilities were, being able to throw other cards in decks and stuff. I just enjoyed playing Hawkeye a lot more. One of the times where it did hold, the one time it held was with Groot and Rocket Raccoon. I've just never been a huge Rocket Raccoon fan. While Rocket Raccoon was cool the way his abilities worked with his deck, I still enjoyed playing Groot more. Just enjoyed it a lot more. It was definitely my play style. I wanted to build with Groot immediately right after playing. And with Peter Quill, or Star-Lord and Gamora, I was looking more forward to Star-Lord than Gamora. I didn't really like the way Star-Lord's ability worked. It fit the character. If you know the character from the comics and you just watch the movies, it fit the character to a T. They caught Star-Lord in that. But Gamora is one of my main decks. I definitely enjoyed Gamora. I think those are the only ones that came out together. Pretty sure everyone else came out different, but if I missed one of them, oh well. This video is long enough, so we're going to go ahead and stop it here. Let's get on with the Gambit one. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.